Chapter 3, The Meeting. It was August 11th, 2015, and it was a day like no other, because it was the only day every year that was also my birthday. Like any other summer day in Sedona, Arizona, it was blistering hot. Occasionally we'd be blessed with evening monsoon showers, but temperatures hovered around 100 degrees in the sun. However, I was still greatly enjoying my first summer in Sedona. I had moved about 4 months prior from Tucson, Arizona, which is about 3.5 hours south of Sedona. The state capital, Phoenix, our largest city, was directly in the middle. Thankfully, the weather in Sedona is about 10 degrees cooler than Tucson and about 20 degrees cooler than Phoenix. After 16 years of unbearable heat, I was thrilled that the thermometer rarely broke 100 degrees, meaning I could go out hiking and biking to my heart's content. Throw an unlimited monthly yoga pass, and I was in heaven. Sedona was the perfect place for me, and on my birthday, I was starting with yoga, then taking a trip down to the creek. Oak Creek during the summer is the perfect balance of heat and cold. The water kept me refreshed, and the sun kept me jumping in the water all afternoon. I would regularly go up to Grasshopper Point because it was a good place to jump 20 feet into the deep water. Plus, it was only a couple minutes up Oak Creek Canyon, a canyon full of beautiful swimming holes with incredible views. In my opinion, nothing in Arizona compares. Now, I did thankfully have the day off from work, meaning I could sit back and enjoy the day. I intended to take myself to dinner that evening as well. I started a ritual of taking myself to my favorite restaurant on my birthday. Not because no one would come out, but because I wanted alone time. Too much partying in my youth would leave me recovering on my birthday. I rather enjoy the me time, and what better day to do me than on my birthday? This birthday was going to be no different, and I was going to be taking myself to dinner at the local vegan eatery, Chocolate Tree. I had heard positive reviews, but never had the extra money available. I had never been vegan, but I would consider myself a conscious eater. It matters how my food is grown. I continue to eat non-GMO, organic, or preferably local. I rarely eat processed food, and I try to cook as much of my food as possible. It was a big treat to take myself out to dinner at a new, exciting restaurant. I spent 10 years working in restaurants, so naturally food is something I particularly enjoy. Trying new, amazing cuisine is always an adventure for me. That dinner began an undertaking that I could have never foreseen. It was a cute restaurant with tons of plants and greenery. The inside had walls covered in art and superfoods. The menu was full of tonics, teas, and an array of healthy elixirs. I had never seen an extensive menu full of vegan food substitutes. There was cheese, burgers, and even vegan nachos. I decided to go with the mushroom fantasy because I've always loved good fungi. With my delicious pu'er hot tea to accompany me, I was settling in for some fun people watching. It was about 10 minutes after taking a seat that I spotted a few women just wandering around the restaurant. One of them was walking around with a baby, and the other two were being incredibly social. The baby was not interested in the action because she wouldn't stop staring and smiling at me. The inner child and me exchanged smiles, waves, and some funny faces. It was at this time a friend of the baby's mother approached from the back of the restaurant. She was beautiful, confident, and a stunning woman. I noticed her from before, but she noticed me this time. There was almost an instant connection. She approached me without hesitation. Her self-possession was unrivaled and her beauty breathtaking. It wasn't very long before she had a seat and joined me for what would be the rest of my meal. She introduced herself, but sadly at the time I didn't register her name, as so often I don't. I have never been the best at remembering names right when I meet people. I've gotten better, but it still happens. This new stranger was probably one of the most interesting people that I had yet to come across in Sedona. I think what made her so appealing is that we could talk about anything. I'm rarely able to open up and discuss serious topics with such openness. My views on society greatly differ from the mainstream view of worldly things. Well, this incredible woman was someone after my own heart. The friendship was immediate, but she remained so elusive to me. I couldn't read her the way that I could read most people. There was something else about her that I couldn't put my finger on. Either way, I was overjoyed to be having such an incredible random experience on my birthday. I remember one of the first things she decided to do after hearing it was my birthday. She had me pull out my phone, not to get my number. Instead, she wanted to read my star chart. Little did I know that she was probably one of the most adept readers of star charts that I have ever encountered, and I used to sell my art at psychic fairs. As she quickly looked over the chart, she was completely thrilled at what she discovered. While I wish I were a little more adept at what everything means, I do have a basic understanding of certain influences the planets have on us. However, I am most familiar with the planet retrogrades. Anyone familiar with something called Mercury Retrograde has likely noticed the effects. Mercury Retrograde is a 3-week period where Mercury appears to start moving in the opposite direction in the sky. This phenomenon happens several times a year, causing many to experience something I have personally experienced many times. It is as if all the lessons from the past several months seem to resurface at the same time. It is recommended to proceed with caution during these times. When I learn it's Mercury Retrograde, I heed the warnings. Many spiritual teachers offer advice about how to navigate life during retrogrades. My experience has taught me that many past issues are brought up spectacularly, only to test our current emotional reactions. In my opinion, the stars and planets affect our lives in ways that few people understand or even try to comprehend. I've had previous star readings, most significantly a reading saying my ideal partner would be a water sign. My new friend and dining companion just happened to be a water sign. Well, as she read my birth chart, she proceeded to tell me much of what I already knew about myself. I was a strong fire sign, and I had many planets in the house of Leo, including the sun. I displayed the characteristics Leos have: intelligence, warmth, and courage. Leos also battle with arrogance, pride, and struggle to listen. It wasn't so much the Leo information that caught my attention, but it was the fact that she started saying that our other planets lined up with one another. My Venus was in an auspicious place in her chart, and my moon was in a midheaven. Honestly, I don't even know that, and I'm writing it. I still barely understand what it means. I have since discovered that the studies on the subject have shown most lasting married couples have favorable star charts. It is uncommon that two people with unfavorable star charts end up together, and if so, show higher divorce rates. The Astrology File by Gunter Sachs shows this. So now that we knew the stars were aligned, I guess getting to know each other was the next step. We started talking and talking and talking. I sat there across from her feeling the connection we had. I am far from the person to make the first move, and was just so blown away at how smart and insightful this person was. She was as smart, if not smarter than me, which I loved. Her sense of humor was light and sweet, although she had this stoic presence that made her elusive to me. I honestly didn't know what to think, and I just kept talking with her. We talked until they kicked us out of the restaurant. I offered to give her a ride home, which she explained was less than half a mile up the road. I walked her to the door and gave her a big hug goodnight. The energy between us was so powerful, but neither of us dared to make the next move. It was perfect just how it happened. As I started my car, it began to rain, the drops hitting my windshield as I backed out of the driveway. She stood in pristine beauty at her doorway as I waved goodbye. It was now sprinkling as I drove away from this mysterious woman who had unknowingly stolen my heart. She was all I could think about that night and the next day. Although I didn't have her name, I saved her number in my phone as beautiful. I was fascinated and couldn't believe how lucky I was to receive such a special birthday present. I felt terrible that I hadn't caught her name or remembered it, but it didn't stop me from thinking about her. She had truly captured my eye that night. We both knew there was something special, but I didn't make a move and neither did she. It just wasn't meant to happen yet, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. The next day came around like any other, up early and off to yoga. The one difference being I couldn't get this amazing woman off my mind. It made me feel again like a little boy at Christmas. My inner child was running wild and I wanted to see her again. As I was driving to the store that day, I coincidentally drove past her friends from the previous night. I texted her right after I saw them because it felt like a sign. After a couple of texts back and forth, I straight up called her. Thankfully, she mentioned her name early in the conversation, and I never forgot it after that. It was Danielle Claire. So beautiful and so elegant, it fit her perfectly. I knew this phone call was special because, again, our conversation flowed so easily. Our second evening, we ended up talking on the phone for nearly 8 straight hours. We talked about everything important in our lives, what made us unique and what made us stand out from the rest of the world. Much entailed the problems faced by aggressive male egos, something both of us had very strong opinions and experiences to share. As a beautiful woman, she was repeatedly a target for the alpha male. All the smooth talking, conniving, lies, and insidious means that these guys do and say to try to get in a woman's pants. This incredible woman told me stories of which I am unable to repeat. She was, after all, 007 dance teacher. Her purity and beauty were only masking her strength and awareness. She could smell out ill intentions like it was a sixth sense. This gift was as much of a curse as it left her jaded to the abuses of men. I wanted to understand further, as I was never a victim of repeated abuse. We talked about it for a while because she had seen in one bad relationship after another. These guys would appear as good, honest, and caring individuals, but instead were cunning deceivers. These guys are so good at putting on a front that most people didn't see the person that they are behind the scenes. Men have become super good at hiding their true selves from women and the public.